I have lots of experience with SenseMaker, actually. So I've done about 12 or 13 very large applications of them. In fact, I'm just finishing a baseline study, so talking about impact evaluation for on girls' empowerment in Ethiopia, where we collected quite an extensive survey from 4,000 people, and we have 2,800 stories from girls and boys and caregivers. And I find it extremely powerful. It brings people, it brings the, it rehumanizes data. I think that a lot of numerical data, we lose sight of the people behind it, and it does something to your heart, and we need to engage people in their heart space to make a difference, to then look at data and to be immediately able to hear people's stories behind that. SenseMaker, for those of you who don't know, and that's the subject of another webinar, is an approach that allows you to collect stories at scale. I call it voices in the room. You're bringing voices into a room when it's often impossible to, I can't collect 2,800 people and draw them into a conversation, but you can have a very, very layered analysis by looking at this in a very statistical way. So it's a package that allows you to analyze in a very quantitative way these stories about which people then answer certain questions, right? So it's a very powerful tool because it also takes me out of the picture as the interpreter. So it's stories that people then share about what it's like to be a girl, in this case, in Ethiopia. And then we get them to respond with we get them to say, well, tell us a bit more about this story. Is it a story about confidence, security, friendship, violence, whatever, so you can start to then parse it and look at it in different subsets. Is it a story in which you did what you wanted, or you were forced to do something that you didn't want? So you're talking about agency. But they are doing the coding themselves, and that's incredibly powerful. I also worked in the 1990s with Most Significant Change, which is also a story approach. That one is, I think, well, I was a little bit less enthusiastic about that as soon as I discovered SenseMaker, partly because it's known to be more positively biased, whereas the SenseMaker stories really do come from every single perspective. It's just a way of framing it. You can do Most Significant Change in a less biased way, but the problem I have with the way that Most Significant Change has been framed is that you're talking about the outliers, because you're talking about the most significant change. So you're really talking about extremes, whereas I think that a lot of what we need to understand is how people are experiencing stuff across the spectrum, not just the extremely strong and the extremely, positive, but also once you have these stories, that's it. You then have I have to then sit and interpret a set of stories, whereas the SenseMaker work kind of adds another layer by this self-coding, as well as the software that allows you to look at a data set of 2,800 stories, which you couldn't do with the human eye, right? So I think, personally, I think that that's really going to be where a lot of future work will happen, kind of bringing the stories back into the statistical, or the stories, bringing stories back into the indicators, I guess. I'm trying to figure out what the opposite of stories is, but maybe it doesn't have an opposite. So thanks for the question.